business into the mixed community so that it's like Tulsa, Black Wall Street, but for mixed people in
Mhm.
2026. Like that's my vision.
That's so cool. I love that because it's like, yeah, it's so specific and unique that you understand because you've lived it, where it's like so many other people just don't think about these things because they're like, oh, no, you just check one box and like, boom, you're part of this cohort. And we mark it this way because they think of cohorts as monoliths. And yeah, I think that's really smart that you found a way to like make it impactful, but also business oriented. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm really glad that you're part of the journey because even though we've been around since like 2019 and that feels like a really long time, in a way, we're still just getting started in
Yeah.
very many ways. Like it's absolutely still the beginning. So it's really cool to be meeting you at this juncture because this is the most powerful and organized and resourced that we've ever been as a company. And I think also, like, just as an entrepreneur, I didn't know that it takes 5 to 7 years to really establish yourself and understand the different departments of your business. It's legal, it's marketing, it's finance, it's all these different departments and like getting the team together and building momentum. It just takes an incredible amount of time and effort and energy. And now I feel so ready for the next stage and you're like meeting us at this perfect juncture and you have an incredible career that you've built and are continuing to build with kids that I'm actually really excited to hear about. So welcome Nina. Welcome some of the other people that have joined. Just gonna start us off but also say that our chat is all the way on the top right. It's like a little thought bubble. So our chat never goes away. And in my opinion, the chat is like the MVP of these meetups because the resources that are being shared, they never go away. So if you're ever looking for people's email addresses or quotes or resources to self publish your book, things like that, those are in the chat. And so and I mean, obviously, like people like Nina, who's with us all the time and has her own Discord and is an amazing community member that does meetups. She already knows. But I wanted to reiterate, and for at any moment, please put your questions in the chat or your comments or your observations or your stories. We would love to hear them. You can interrupt me at any time. And then if when people start to feel ready, just click on the little wavy emoji and then you can come and unmute yourself and ask a question or contribute in any way that you like. So we are going to officially get started. And I know that it's such a cliche for people to read people's bios still, but I also actually kind of love it because that's a way to give you your flowers, Mickey, and for people to really understand who we're dealing with, like the force that we are here to reckon with. And so I am just going to start by reading your bio so that people know exactly who's here, and then we'll go from there. So it's an honor, again, Mickey, thank you. But you are a Los Angeles-based actor, a voiceover artist, an author. Your work spans theater, film, television, audio, and print. Recent credits include We're Doing Good, South by Southwest, second at the Holly Short Film Festival. Voice work for platforms like Disney Plus, Netflix, Google, WNBA, Uber. But beyond your work, it's we're looking at mediums, and so the storyteller, Mickey, the storyteller, is committed to making sure that the next generation has language, representation, and just a reflection that so many of us did not have growing up. I wish my parents had had these books growing up. And so this is your debut children's book. It's called Cake Mix: Learning to Love All Your Ingredients. And it's so beautiful, it's accessible, a story about identity, belonging, and self acceptance through our character Remy. And so Mickey opens up a conversation that so many of us know, being asked to define ourselves before we even fully understand who we are, and offers a creative path forward. So we're rooted in curiosity and love and celebration. And you're also the founder of Mixed Kids and Co., which is a platform dedicated to supporting mixed children and families and creating resources and stories that reflect the complexity and the richness of mixed identity. So also, we're talking about business and entrepreneurship right there with all the other things that you're doing. So yeah, not only an artist, but someone who's actively reshaping how identity is understood and starting at the very beginning of your own identity journey. So yeah, I'm gonna just applause here for you virtually. Thank you so much for joining our book club. And is there anything that I left out that you want to add?
No, thank you so much, Lily, for A, having me, and B, reminding me of the things that I do. Because I think oftentimes as creatives, as you know, we like kind of have our head down and keep doing the work. And we're like, oh, yeah, I did that. Oh, yeah, I do that too. So thank you so much. And thank you for like creating a space to have like safe, open conversations because it's really kind of rare that we get to have these opportunities. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I agree, actually. This should be the most normal thing ever for people to just be able to have these conversations, and it's really not. And so I agree. I think it is really special that we make time to show up for them. And one of the things that does keep me going, like we're talking about entrepreneurship, it's like sometimes these KPIs or milestones that you have like we just started our TikTok, for example. We just started it. And I was gonna go live on TikTok earlier, and TikTok was like, oh, you can't go live till you have 50 followers on TikTok. And I was like, okay. So there's these milestones sometimes where it's just like, dang, we don't even have 50 followers yet on TikTok. I mean, we just started, but that kind of it can feel a little disheartening at times. But the benefit of being in this kind of world with this company for so long is that I've gotten messages from many people, even from years ago, that are like, I used to join your meetups on Zoom in 2022 or 2023, or people that have been inspired to write their own book and start their own companies and really go and get that extra training so that they can now go and be a counselor, or young students who are getting their bachelor's degrees who want to be therapists for mixed race families who are using our meetups as part of their research. It's like it really does make a huge difference. And you have kids, so you can see the direct impact that you make on your family and like on the kids in your life. But yeah, I just think that what we say is going to be remembered, and people really do need this, and I need this. And so I'm really happy that we're here.
Awesome. Well, I just want to, I don't have kids. I will just say that.
Oh, that's my bad.
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry. I don't know
It's
why I
okay.
thought that. I made an assumption or
No, that's
something. I'm
okay.
sorry.
It's so funny because also I want to say thank you for everyone who's joining. Like, really appreciate you joining in this. I'm in LA, so I'm like this morning. But it's funny because when I had the launch party for the book, because I originally self-published and then I got picked up by a publisher, so I had like a big launch at like a great bookstore in Culver City here in LA. And when I was coming up with the guest list, I was like, oh. I guess I like invite my friends with kids or like people that I know who have kids or cousins and yeah, so and I we can get into like why I chose to write a children's story, but just so people know, I personally do not have children. I love kids. I love education and my mom's an educator, so I've always been very clued in, but I am not a
Mhm.
mom in the
Okay.
traditional sense.
Okay. Well, that is a great clarification. And again, I'm sorry for
No, that's
putting
okay.
out this wrong information.
All good.
Um, okay. Well, I'm gonna get started with my very first question here. And I will say, I feel like to some degree, it's a bit predictable, but it really just starts with that, especially as you're just saying that maybe it's not coming from like your own need to help your own children through this. Like, what did inspire you to write this book? What was your writing process like?
Yeah, so I was volunteering in a kindergarten classroom back in like 2017, 2018, where I was going to read to kindergartners, and it was wild to me that I was like picking these books every week that were so fun and illustrative and whimsical, But despite living in Los Angeles, we have the second largest public library system. I had a really hard time finding books consistently that featured kids that looked like the kids in the classroom. It was like primarily Hispanic and Asian American students. And LA is like super multicultural. And I wanted to have stories that reflected a myriad of cultures. And it was just so hard to find it. It's like there were stories about holidays, there were maybe stories about like grandparents talking about like historical events that had happened in their culture, but it wasn't really like kids doing everyday things or kids going on a sci-fi adventure or kids in like a scary setting. Like it was just very much like, okay, the brown and black kids, people of color kids, they just get to have holidays and then hang out with their grandparents, and that was it. Which, like,
Mm,
yes, we need those stories, but it really kind of like bothered me that there weren't more, right? It's like I was going every week, and kids have short attention spans. So I was reading like 5 to 10 books a session. So I was like running out of books to find that gave them the diversity that they experience and that I wanted to have an impact that they got to see. And so after reading so many children's books, you kind of get like a rhythm of, oh, this is kind of the format, this is the plot, this is what hooks them in the beginning, and then this is how the structure of a children's book story goes. And it also made me think that I wish that adults read more children's books because they are so powerful. You can say a lot in less than 1,000 words, and you can see a lot through the pictures. And then as I started to kind of read more, I was really challenged. I was like, you know what? I'm also an actor, and making a short film wasn't something that I was really drawn to do because I still haven't, to this day, I still haven't really solidified like what I want to say in a short film. But I realized I have something to say in a children's book, and people say, write what you know. And something that I get a lot is, I'm sure you do too, the question, what are you? And it's something that I've had a very winding journey of how I respond to it. And so I thought, you know what? I don't want to do this as like a short film of like me as an adult because it just didn't seem like the right setting for it. But with children, it's a way that you can talk about it that brings up a lot of different emotions. It brings up curiosity. It brings up a scenario where you really get to kind of feel what it feels like to be asked that question, and like the ricochet effect of like, wait, what? Like I'm a human. Like what do you mean? So it
yeah.
felt like a natural platform and a natural medium to kind of talk about that question. And so I wrote the manuscript, and originally it was called What Are You? And I had the cake metaphor in there because Remy bakes a cake with her mom, and her mom teaches her what it means to be mixed by having like a lot of different ingredients. And when I had an editor look at it, he was like, "Hey, what about the title Cake Mix?" And I was like, "Oh, wow, like that is so clever because I think something I struggle with sometimes when it comes to talking about identity in my art. I don't always want it to be so literal or so on the nose. Like I think we live in these nuanced spaces, so I'm always drawn to stories that are a bit more nuanced personally. And so that felt like a really nice way to kind of like draw people in a more universal way. It's like, oh, cake mix. We don't necessarily know what it's about. And then as you read the story, it kind of catches people of like, oh, okay, this is what it is. And so that's really where the motivation came from. And then I really decided to go for it because I had sent it out to agents, publishers, didn't get any eyes on it for about a year. And then COVID happened. And I was sitting at home, couldn't act, couldn't really do a lot of work. And also 2020, George Floyd, and this big uprising was taking place. And I had a moment during that time where I think it was really apparent to me, and I'm curious, I'm sure you probably had very, I don't know if about conflicting is the right word, but just a lot of feelings about it of like, okay, now people care about people of color, but it took such a violent act to be recorded and distributed for people to care. So I think that was like a really strong moment for me of realizing like I can't wait for people to care about my story because that's just not something I'm willing to do, or I don't want to wait for permission, I guess, from a society that responds to violence in the way that it does. So I decided because it was COVID, I had a lot of time on my hands. There were a lot of grants that were popping up. So I applied to a grant. It was specifically for Black women and Black women entrepreneurs. And I was like, you know what? What if I self publish and I made this happen using the story that I know is the story I want to tell. So I ended up getting a grant through American Express and I Fund Women, which is an incredible organization that supports a lot of women entrepreneurs. And so, yeah, got grant money, decided to do, the whole like look for an illustrator, get an editor, proofreader, formatter, all of that, and like really build out the book myself. And then got it self published. That got the attention of a mentor of mine who wanted to represent me as a talent. So he's like my literary agent. And then he was the one who introduced me to a publisher who wanted to take it as is. Like they didn't want to make any changes to it, which was incredible. And then I got it published and now it's like out in the world on a bigger scale, which I'm really proud of.
Wow. Thank you for sharing so many of the stages and the details of how you got there and what it's taken. And yeah, I mean, it is also like looking back, it's 2026 now, and that started. It didn't even start in 2020. It even started before that. But it's like, yeah, the circumstances, the personal journey that we go through, and like we have to inside be ready for something before we can kind of make it really work long term and be sustainable outside of us. And so I'm really struck by that it's like, yeah, I'm really ready to take this forward. Like you're saying for you, like I'm gonna be willing to be so visible and get so many no's even with like, and I'm sure it's not even a no, it's just ghosting. They're
Yeah.
just they won't even actually have the decency per se to respond back. It's just like all
Hmm.
these messages go into a void and you hear nothing back
Hmm. Yeah,
until a
absolutely.
publisher picks up your book and doesn't make any changes. I love that. That's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, you already brought it up, though, like, what are you? And so often that question comes before we have the language. I mean, when someone asks me that now, it's like I have all this context and vocab and whatever, da da da. But as a little kid, as a 10-year-old, as an 8-year-old, just a 14-year-old, sometimes we don't have that. So yeah, tell me a little bit now, how do you answer that question now, kind of after you've gone through this whole journey and you've published your book?
Yes. So I'll kind of go backwards a little bit of how I used to answer it. So originally, when I first was asked that question, it would happen anytime I would travel. As I remember, like being a teenager and, or even junior high, actually, I used to be pretty religious, no longer am. But my church growing up, we would go to Mexico to do these mission trips, which looking back, I don't personally agree with anymore, but I would be in Mexico knowing that like my dad is Mexican American with native ancestry, but a lot of the people in Mexico, they wouldn't know what I was. They would ask if I was like Arabian or if I was black sometimes. Like they just didn't know how to place me. So I remember like going to Mexico and being like, okay, like they don't think I'm Mexican. Okay, that's that. And then growing up, I grew up in a very small agricultural conservative town in Central California, farming community. And it's pretty, I would say like it's mostly white, but there is like a heavy Hispanic population because there's a lot of farming and agriculture there. But growing up, I think I was viewed as the token black girl, and I was the only black girl in my class because my mom, she's African American and Polish Jewish mix. But yeah, everyone kind of just like saw me as one thing. And then if I would try to chime in on something else, they would have an opinion on it. So as I got older, and any time people asked me what I was always like jarred and kind of like shocked by it because I just didn't really know what answer to give them. I didn't know what they wanted to hear. And I kind of always thought it was about them. And then in college, I kind of got a little snarky with it, and I would like make people guess, or I would make something up just to kind of see like how people would react differently. Like if I said I was South Indian, would you respond differently if I said I was Caribbean, you know? And it kind of became this like game that I would play with people or to try to make them feel uncomfortable too. Because oftentimes what would happen is, I mean, I have a very like West Coast accent. Like I grew up in California, and I went to school in UCLA, and then I would meet people, have a conversation, and they'd be like, okay, but like where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I'm from California. They'd be like, "Oh no, where are you really from?" And I'd be like, what do you mean?" They're like, you're not from America. Like, what's your nationality?" And I'm like, I'm American. Like, all my grandparents were born here. Like, I don't like know what you want me to say. And so I would kind of like try to make them feel bad about it, because I think that was just being in my early 20s and try to just get back at people, I guess. And so
Totally.
now I think the book has allowed me, I don't have to play a game with people. I don't have to try to trick them. I don't even have to be bothered by it. I think now I
Mhm.
can respond just very honestly and just tell people, "Hey, I'm very mixed." And then I kind of like tell them what my background is, and there's not as much heat that comes. And I think doing the book helped a lot with that, of kind of being able to pass any of my anxieties around it into the character of Remy, and knowing like I don't need to explain myself, and also understanding a lot of people come with curiosity. It's not always from a layer of, feeling like they're trying to figure you out or something. They're just genuinely curious, and I think that's something I was able to explore in the book too. They're
Oh
not
no,
thinking
wait.
about
Sorry, my bad. There was just a little
um
lag.
okay. They're not thinking about the impact of their question. They're just asking a question. And so I think the book really allowed me to kind of show that that even if you ask a question, what it looks like on the person being asked and how that can make them feel. And so I think it's given me a lot of healing in terms of answering that question now. I don't have to add an edge. I can just be like, yeah, this is my background.
Hmm. Yeah, I love this for you. And also, I've been really studying people's stages of their identity and like starting off from just growing up in your environment where you don't really question things and you just kind of are living, and all the way up through your identity crisis, and then all the way down back into this place of peace and this place of ownership and like really not taking people so personally and being able to claim your own perspective and claim the way, even your own language, the way you talk about yourself. I guess my follow-up question, I'm curious about you. It's like, how do you feel about that? There is still, in my opinion, my experience, no matter how confident and peaceful and grounded I am about stuff now, there still feels like there's the sometimes it feels like a responsibility. Maybe it could be a burden of the educating the other person, because it
Mm.
really is like, when you say nationality, like, are you talking about my passport, or are you talking about my ethnic background? Are you talking about my ancestry? Are you talking about my heritage? Like, those are not all the same. And so the education to some degree over like, well, how can a person be Polish and Jewish? How can a person be Mexican and indigenous? Like, how do you feel about that open space that you could or could not step into when it comes to educating people?
That's a great question. I think it depends on the setting. Like if if it feels like there's enough time to kind of go into it, and if the person is asking maybe like follow-up questions, or uh I think there is a moment or a way to tell people, or I do it maybe in a subtle way. If people are like, "Oh, what's your nationality?" I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I'm American. I was born and raised in California. But, if you want to know about my ethnicity, then I'll go into it, So I kind of just like highlight the words in a way, and then I can tell some people clock it of like, "Oh yeah, like those things are different, right?" And then another thing that I really try to explain to people, because I think especially when it comes to acting is a, a lot of people kind of, it's easier for them to view people in monoliths, right? Or if you are brown in this country, you are an immigrant or your parents are immigrants. And in my instance, they're not. Like my dad's, both his parents were born in California. And I don't really have a ton of knowledge or ties to like family in Mexico. Like I didn't grow up like going to Mexico to see family. Same with my mom. Like I don't have any ties to her African American side. Like I don't know who her biological father is, and that's something that is a goal of mine to explore deeper and try to like find family that I can connect with. And so I think it's something that I'm learning to do is like the more open and vulnerable I am about my own learning, that's a way to kind of
Yeah.
show people like I don't have all the answers about my background, but it's something I can learn and adapt and grow to know more of. So kind of
Mhm.
give, I think that helps me give them space of like they're not going to know exactly how to talk about these things. So if it's like a natural conversation, I'll get into it. But in other cases, sometimes I don't necessarily feel like it is my responsibility, or I might encourage them to read something or watch something. Like the movie Origin is a perfect example. I don't know if you've seen that movie by Ava DuVernay, but it's about
Mhm.
Isabel Wilkerson, who wrote the book Cast. And it's a book that I need to read. It feels very intimidating, but very important because that's a whole different perspective of kind of like taking race out of the equation and how race is a construct for hierarchy and for control. And she kind of like talks about it in the lens of caste. So that's something that I actually have considered. And I am very inspired by the work you do because I think a lot of these topics are so complex and
Yeah.
in depth that I personally like am learning, and I would like to invite conversation and kind of share it with other people. So it's something I've thought about, like what if I do start a YouTube channel where I go through these books and like talk about these things, because it doesn't feel like it's enough in one 5-minute conversation. It's like I could have a whole master's degree journey in this. And so it is something I'm currently exploring doing of like, what if I did kind of do like deep dives into these books that I've been curious about to understand myself better? And that could be a way to kind of educate myself and other people at the same time. So, yeah.
Oh, yes, I love this. Yes. Sign me up. And yeah, I mean, to take it a level further, you also mentioned UCLA. I found out in 2025 about the Critical Mixed Race Studies Association, CMSR, CM,
Oh,
Critical Mixed Race, CMRSA. I don't know if you've heard about them.
no.
But yeah, they had a conference. They do one every 2 years, and the 2026 one was at UCLA. So I actually was just there like a month ago, 6 weeks ago, for
Wow.
their Critical Mixed Race Studies Association conference. And it was this 3 day conference with all these like amazingly brilliant academics who have PhDs and have published papers all about mixed race and like critical analysis on the mixed race identity, on early childhood development, how to like play with children who are mixed race and help them understand that they don't have to think in binaries and that there's a gray area that they can embrace for themselves, and how important representation is for young children. And I mean, in the mixed space, I'll just say this too. My perspective on a mixed identity is also a bit expanded specifically for this reason. I believe that if you're in an interracial relationship, you're building a mixed identity because
Mm,
you're empathizing with your partner and with the other person's perspective that's not just yours. And if you have children, obviously your child will be mixed. So you
mhm,
have to, you're also like building, if you're a parent of a mixed race child, you are building a mixed identity. If you have adopted a child from a different country, that's called transracial adoption, you are building a mixed identity. And so there's so many ways. There's people who have multiple religions in the same household.
mhm.
There's people where people are maybe married and one partner has a different sexual orientation. Like one person might be straight and the other might identify as bi, and that they're still together, and that can be a mixed identity. And so it moves away from race. It really goes further than that. It helps us understand that we can give ourselves so much more permission to take up space, even inside ourselves, and to be so much more honest and vulnerable about like what makes sense to us and what we feel really does represent us and what doesn't. And so even taking it back now from like these PhDs and these academics who are writing books about this to then a children's book, like how and I love that you've chosen a children's book. I mean, obviously your story, it helps us understand how you kind of got into that genre, but using a cake mix is such a simple metaphor on the surface, but then it carries a lot of weight. And we're constantly reducing identities into categories in this world, especially in the United States. And so it's like, yeah, what's it like for you to be working with children or writing this book for children that is introducing them to their identity at such a young age without all of this vocab?
Yeah, I think first of all, that conference sounds incredible. I'm like geeking out right now. I'm like, that's just so cool. Um, and yeah, I think when I was writing the book, it was really important for me that I didn't want to use the word race in the book. And it was very intentional not to. I don't have an issue with saying I'm mixed race or people thinking about it in that way. But technically, I think for me, ethnicity is just so much more specific because I think
Mhm.
even if you are Black American, are you, is your origin from Nigeria? Is your origin from Haiti? It's like I
Mhm.
think the more specific we get, I think the more universal it becomes, if that makes sense. It's and that's something that I learned through acting is like the more specific your character is, the more universal the audience is going to be able to connect because it's true. It's so true, right? And so I think it was very intentional to not use the word race at all. I use it in the synopsis because it's easy for people to be like, oh, mixed race. Okay, they know what that is. But specifically, I said, I didn't want to use the word race, but I use ethnicity and I define it because I think it's something. I'll show you the picture. I have the mom explain it, and even Remy like trips up on how to say it. She's like, what's that word?" Right? It's like, because to me, it's probably maybe the first time a child is going to hear that word. And then her mom, there's a picture with ethnicity breaking down the syllables. And then on this page, it's a lot of text for a children's book, but I try to highlight, if you can see in different colors, like
Colors.
the actual definition, because I wanted this to be a teaching moment for parents, for students, for adults. They come from the same country or place, they speak the same language, eat certain foods, and have a special history. So that's easy for kids to break down of like, okay, like, a different language. A lot of kids, especially in America now, they're speaking multiple languages, whether it's at home or at school with their friends. Like they're having different foods that they might not have in a public school versus what their parents and grandparents cook for them. And so I wanted it to be very like tangible things that they could understand that make people different, but really wrapping it up in ethnicity. Because another thing that I wanted, that I thought was really interesting is yes, this is for mixed families, but it's also for all children. Because I think something people don't realize growing up, I read books that had white people in them all the time. Did I get confused or was I not able to understand what was going on? No. Like, like I, Harry Potter is a perfect example of like the new trailer came out. I'm a proud millennial. I'm not into the new trailer. I'm sorry. I'm an OG fan. I'll probably still watch it. But, Harry Potter, like I was able to fully, and yeah, there were some children of color, but not a lot. But I was able to fully understand the relationships, the conflicts, all of that without being white. Right. And so
Or
to
from the
me,
UK.
Or from the
Like,
UK, yeah, or being a wizard. Like, I should, you know, like, to my knowledge, I'm not a witch. Like, it's just, it's just something that I think people get lost with representation sometimes. Is that
yeah,
if it's a story featuring Black kids, Asian kids, Latinx kids, like, doesn't mean that other kids who don't identify with that can't be engaged. And so, yes, this is a story about a mixed child, but all children can read this, they can understand it, they can learn from it, they can love it. And that was something that was really important for me, is making it, again, specific enough but also universal. And so that's why, like, baking, I think, was a great metaphor. Like, I loved baking as a kid, and I'm obsessed with cooking, like baking shows specifically. As an adult, like, I watch them all the time, and it just felt like a very tactile, like physical, sensory experience for children to have. That if you create like a memory, right? It's like, I hope that kids are reading this book and then they're like, I want to go bake a cake now with my parents, or with my, with my grandparents, or whoever is taking care of me, because it's a way that you can bake and have a conversation. And it's more likely to stick with kids, right? It's like, we remember experiences more than we might remember like words on a page sometimes. And so I want it to be very sensory, very interactive, and something that they could kind of grow as they get older to be like, oh, that's what that book was about. I thought it was about baking, but it's really about this. And it's been really fascinating because, yeah, I have like friends who have like little babies who love it because they just like love the illustrations, which were done beautifully by Victoria Lewis, my illustrator. And then I have teenagers who have been like, or, parents of like a 12-year-old being like, my 12-year-old loves this book because it
hmm
gives her an opportunity to kind of be like, yeah, this is how I feel. I feel like I don't fully understand where to place myself or
hmm
how to be, because being is so complex, it's not kind of cut and dry for us. And so, and then I've also had some adults who don't have children who have bought the book because they're like, this is the book I wish I had when I was a kid. And that is definitely, I think, the book I was writing. It's the book that I wish I had growing up. And like, it's interesting too, because like my mom is mixed, and she's always been very open about like being mixed with me, but not knowing part of her family, there were some like limitations with that. It's something that we can't fully explore to its fullest. And so this has kind of been a way for me to expand on that conversation that my mom isn't able to really like give me. And so it's a way to kind of like parent myself in a way, if that makes sense, through storytelling of like, well, if I had a child, this is the conversation I would be having with them. So yeah.
Yeah, kudos to you for breaking that generational limitation to some degree, to like really being able to move past that and to not let it haunt you. And it's just a really great reminder for me too that even children who have a mixed parent don't receive the like best mixed parenting that you could ever imagine. It doesn't really work like that. It takes generations for us to work through our family history and to work through our heritage and our stories and our ancestors. It's just not just, most of us don't get all of that. And I thought that my parents didn't do a great job because they're both monoracial, and that's not really the case. You can be
Mhm.
multi-generationally mixed and still not really have what it needs, or the child might still need more and create it for themselves because it takes years and it might take generations for us to work through
Yeah.
this.
And I will say too, it's definitely generational. And I think my mom, she's also given me a very like humbling experience as well, because for her, she would always say, at least you have parents who look like you. It's
Yeah.
like I do like my dad is very clearly like a brown, like he's Hispanic. My mom looks, I think she looks black to people, like that's how people perceive her. And so, yeah, growing up, I looked to them and it was natural for me to be like, yes, these are my parents. But for
Hmm.
her, her mom is white and the my grandpa who raised her, he's white as well. So she just didn't know her biological father at all. And so for her, she was being raised by two white parents. And
Yeah.
that was, and raised in the 70s. So it was a totally different time. So she
Yeah.
experienced a lot of things that you know, didn't, that I'm like more privileged in terms of like, I didn't really have to experience people saying that I was adopted or, questioning where I
Hmm.
came from and things like that. So I will say to my
Yeah.
mom's credit, like she did the best that she could. And she,
Yeah.
he like really, I give her a lot of credit for being so open about it. She would always be like, "At least we look like you," because for her, she didn't really have that experience, and so it's been a really interesting kind of dynamic, I think, especially as an adult. But I will say, I love my parents for allowing me to be so open. Like
Hmm.
they raised a very curious child, so I've always kind of like had these big questions and they've always not always had the language for it, but they've always given me the space to ask, which I really appreciate
Hmm.
about them.
Well, great. You already have the book in your hand. So I
Yeah.
feel like I just want to go ahead and have us read the story, and just get to know our character and her mom. And I want to know what kind of cake they're baking. And so, yeah, if you don't mind, we will do our traditional 10-minute story time. And if anybody wants to turn off, I mean, their camera and just listen and let the story kind of sink in. I think I might do that. So also you don't feel so watched. And I'm just going to enjoy the story and enjoy the illustrations. And then, yeah, and then we'll kind of close out after that.
Awesome. All right. This is Cake Mix, Learning to Love All Your Ingredients, written by Mikki Hernandez and illustrated
Woohoo!
by Victoria Lewis.
Yes.
And I dedicated this book to my mom and my future children if they happen to exist someday. When Remy arrived at her new school, her jitters turned to excitement. This school was smaller than she imagined, so making new friends would be easy, she thought to herself. Her teacher, Mrs. Sanchez, waved her inside and introduced her to the class.
Hmm.
As Remy sat down at her desk, the other students whispered to each other with a curious look in their eyes. She was too excited to notice.
Hmm.
At recess, Remy looked out at the playground. She couldn't decide who to play with. Before she could choose, they all started to crowd around her, asking a string of questions. Where are you from? Why did you move here? ¿Hablas español? Why are your eyes light if you have dark skin? What are you?
Uh,
She stared at them, not knowing what to say. What are you? The boy asked again. What do you mean? Asked Remy. I'm a kid. And she realized no one else looked like her. She ran as fast as she could to the bathroom, not wanting her new classmates to see her cry.
hmm.
Remy lightly touched her cheek, noticing how her skin was a light brown color, sort of in between shade. Then she tugged on her curls, noticing how some bounced more than others. She put her face really closely to the mirror to look at her eyes, a light green that sometimes looked gray. She whispered to her reflection, what am I?
Hmm.
Remy was quiet the rest of the school day. Remy, what's wrong? Her mom gently asked that evening at dinner. I'd love to hear how your first day went. Remy felt a pit in her stomach. Mama, what am I? What do you mean? Asked her mom. What am I? Exclaimed Remy. I don't look like anyone else at school and don't belong to a group. Said Remy's mom, tapping her fork against the table. Do you want to bake a cake? Right now? Yep. Her mom began puttering around the kitchen, pulling ingredients out of cupboards.
Okay.
Okay, said Remy's mother, we're going to need flour, sugar, baking powder, baking soda, salt. Remy mumbled, chocolate? Of course, said Remy's mom as she grabbed some cocoa powder. She also gathered eggs, buttermilk, raspberry jam. Remy's eyes lit up as they mixed the batter. Next, they made Remy's favorite part, multicolored buttercream frosting and a cookie crumble topping. As the cake rose, so did her spirits. The wonderful smell coming from the oven helped too. As Remy ate her cake, her mother asked, do you think your cake would taste so delicious if we made it only using flour or just eggs? Mom, don't be silly, replied Remy, taking another bite. You're right. It tastes good because all the ingredients mix together. This cake happens to have more ingredients than others do, just like you. Huh? Asked Remy. You happen to have a lot of ingredients that make you into you. You are kind, brave, smart, and beautiful inside and out. Plus, you are mixed. I'm what? Asked Remy. You're mixed. Mommy and Daddy both have families who come from different places around the world, which means you are a mix of ethnicities. What's ethnic? Remy asked. Ethnicity means a group of people who come from the same country or place and speak the same language, eat certain foods, and have a special history. Some people have one or two ethnicities. Some people have more. You are a mix of many. You are Mexican, Polish, African American, and Native American. Guess what the best part is? What? Asked Remy. You are a human being first. Humans come in all shades and sizes and hair textures and eye colors, and that's what makes the world so beautiful. And I love you and all of your ingredients.
Hmm.
But I still look funny, said Remy. Can your skin make jokes? No. What about your hair or eyes? Course not. See, honey, you don't look funny, said Remy's mom. Remy smiled as an idea popped into her head.
Mm.
The next day, Remy brought her mom to school to lead a baking lesson. Every student picked out flavors, frosting, and toppings to create their own cake. Each cake was different, and every cake was delicious. Mrs. Sanchez, can I share something with the class? Asked Remy as she licked frosting from her lips. Of course. With a full belly plus a sparkle in her eyes, Remy stood tall and declared, I'm mixed, and I love all my ingredients.
Aw.
The end.
Yay! That's so nice.
It's so fun. I don't read it all like very often anymore. I went to a school yesterday for like a career day, but I just talked about being an author, so I didn't read it. So I'm like, I always get happy when I read it.
Yeah. And it really does give me so much permission. I don't really read children's books that much anymore. And I think my niece is still a little bit too young, but first of all, I'm excited for her to read these books because she's very white presenting, and so she's like blonde and just very fair skinned, and it would be very easy for her to not even realize that she's technically mixed. Um, and yeah, it just makes me remember when I like my dad was in the military and I moved to Germany when I was 4. And I
Mm.
definitely really resonated with Remy because it's like everybody's like, "Why are you so weird? Why don't you speak German?" And I was just like, "What's
Yeah.
happening?" It was really hard and I wish and I think I can even see it now. It's like we can explain things to children so much earlier than we think we can. Like they understand so much more than we think they do. And having a book like that would at least been able to help me realize like, oh, I'm not the only one. Other people go through this too. And there's a way to move through this. And yeah, I got goosebumps when you started reading. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And I think that's been the really cool thing is like when I was writing the book, I was lucky to have a meetup group that gave feedback and notes, and it was a very diverse group of people, and they gave really awesome feedback because originally it was a bit more aggressive and antagonistic in terms of having like one character kind of like verbally like really like, get into her, and they were kind of like that could be isolating for some people because this isn't necessarily like a like an intentional bully story, right? And I'm really happy that I got that feedback because it kind of creates, in my mind, it's sort of like preventative of like maybe if kids haven't had this experience before, it might teach them to maybe not ask that question in such a way, or think about how it might make the other person feel before they ask the question. So it was really important that it wasn't maybe like calling people out in such this like you're bad, you're good. It was more like teaching kids of like, hey, when you ask questions, it has an impact on people. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it's sort of like hoping that it can grow up not getting the questions that we got because they learned like, hey, we don't, really need to ask that.
Yeah, or even more, it's like it actually does really make me think too of how monoracial children, like as Nina's saying in the chat, monoracial folks often get so much less curiosity because we just project all this stuff onto them and we think we can assume how they live and what they believe just because we're choosing to declare them as monoracial and not mixed, which also doesn't really make any sense logically whatsoever.
Mhm.
But to also say like if yeah, where's your mom from? Are your mom and dad from different places? Like, are your parents from different places? We don't even have to assume that this is a heterosexual relationship. Like, there's
Mhm.
all these different things we can, like you're saying, prevent by teaching children other questions to ask and saying, like, are there, are there multiple languages in your household or things like that? If there is curiosity or wanting to learn about more, rather than just like what are you? It's really
Yeah.
just doesn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And something that I did in the self-published version that didn't quite translate over for the published version because it explained to me that when you're, pitching it out to like school districts and public libraries, they don't really want anything that people can like write in. But in my original version, there was a page at the end that sometimes if you order it on Amazon, it gets like the old version. But at the end, there's a page that said, "What's your cake mix?" And that's something that all kids can fill out because even if you, yeah, are technically in like, monoracial, like, yeah, your parents are from different places, and it's a really cool way to kind of get kids to ask their parents. And also I think for a lot of parents, I mean, I'm not a parent, but from what I hear, it's exhausting. And there's not always like time and space to have these like big deep conversations. So this is like a great, I wanted this to be an easy way the parents can like talk about this with their kids. It kind of gives them the language. They don't really have to come up with it. They're like, yeah, where are we from? What languages do we speak? What kind of foods or what traditions do we have? So I really wanted it to be like a tool that parents could use, that makes it easier to talk about such a such a complex topic that adults, we're still trying to figure out how to talk about it. So if kids can
Tell me
talk
about
about
it.
it a little bit better, then it might be easier for adults too.
Amazing. So where can we direct people that want to buy your book or want to gift your book to other people?
So right now, I wish it was available on more, but right now Amazon is the place. We're
Okay.
currently trying to figure out like more ways to get it on like Bookshop and things like that. But right now Amazon is the best place. I know Amazon's a, you know, strange, but
Controversial platform.
yeah,
Yes.
but also too, another thing that you can do to support local bookstores is if you go to a bookstore that you like, you can request the book. And so because it's in the system with like, they can look it up how to order it. So that's another great way to support small bookstores, local bookstores. That's something that I really encourage people to do is go to your public library and request that they have it there. It's a great way to kind of support and get it out to more people. So, yeah.
That is a great call to action. Thank you so much. So, if anybody wants to ask a question or put it in the chat, this is the time to do it before we wrap up. Or if anybody feels inspired now as we're coming to a close to just respond to Mikki or share your story, you can just click on the little wavy emoji on Discord, and we're happy to bring you up on the stage so that you can participate in any way that you want. And while that's happening, I just want to let everybody know that our next book club is happening in April with Teresa Stovall, and she wrote a book called Swirl Girl: Coming of Race in the USA. And so that's happening on April 25th at 12 p.m. It's always, I don't know if that's true. It's actually not always at 12 p.m. Oh, yeah. Okay, great. We have a speaker, so let me stop talking. Um, do you know how to unmute yourself, Juan?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Hey guys, I'm actually my first name is Juan, but then my nickname is John, which is why,
Okay.
and my last name is Liang. I'm also a third culture kid and a cross cultural kid. My dad is three-quarters Chinese, born in Guatemala, trilingual in English, Spanish, and French, but never spoke a word of Chinese at all. My mom is, Jewish, French, English, Irish, and grew up all around the States because of her, her dad was in the military too. And my father also worked for
Great.
Xerox, so we moved all over the world.
Mm.
And when we lived in the States, which is one of the places we lived in, including like North Africa and Central America, when I was a kid, you do like those what do you call them? Birthday parties. And you get invited to your classmates' birthday parties. And those kids, when I would get my card, and I was going by Juan then, they would write WON. And I always wondered. It was 30 years later. In those days I didn't even think about it, but 30 years later, I was thinking, were these kids thinking? Because in those days, when I was younger, I looked a lot more Chinese-ish than I do now, and I was wondering, do those kids think that my name is spelled Juan like wonton soup kind of thing? Because that's the only businesses in Connecticut. 90% of the kids there, or if not more, were all basically white, and so I always sort of found that crazy. And just kind of when I now found that really interesting, and so not only that, my because we lived abroad as biracial kids. My sister Lisa, her stage name is Elizabeth, wrote a play, a solo show about growing up abroad, called The Alien Citizen, and she's taken it all around the world, and she's got it online. We rent it online now. But she also talks about exactly what you guys are talking about, like who are you, what are you, you know, and we both got the same questions, like where are you from, really? No, really. So keep
Mhm.
congrats on the book and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much, John, for sharing. Yeah, it's wild, right? Like when you look back to your childhood and what was so normal back then, you're like, wait, that was so just bizarre, or did it make sense? And we're kids, so we don't fully understand what's happening. So thank you so much for sharing. And that's incredible that your sister made a show. I mean, I would love to. Is there a way that you can share the link or how to find it? Or I would love to watch that.
Yeah, you can find it. It's called Alien Citizen: An Earth Odyssey. You can find it online. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining and sharing your story. Yeah, I think the more that we talk about it, the more we find people who had similar experiences, and it's kind of empowering to be like, okay, I'm not the only one who felt very weird all the time.
Yeah, and not only that, I'm also an editor with Cultures Magazine, Culturs without the E, and we basically cover the that liminal. experience where you're not from anywhere. You were born in one place, lived somewhere else. You may be you may have been a refugee. You may be a military bag. You may have been a diplomat's kid or that kind of thing. And we also have the other end of it, which is that hidden diversity part, that part which the liminal thing where it's an in between worlds kind of thing, and
Mhm.
we cover that as well. So I'll be contacting you later on about maybe talking, maybe doing a separate interview with us too.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. I'm just so inspired because A, by like the mixed space, and B, like hearing about cultures, because yeah, I do have like Mixed Kids in Company that was a blog, and I had a podcast at a time. It was all during COVID, and it's something that I've kind of like not taken a full step away from, but I kind of like paused like how I want to move forward with it. But I think I'm being encouraged on this call, like, no, like we need more spaces where we have these conversations, and like it's something I want to fully figure out the best way to move forward with it, because it's important. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
my sister and she actually had, I don't know, two friends of hers had a podcast a while back called Hapa Happy Hour, and
Mm.
they talked about growing up in the mixed race experience as three Hapa women. One of them, born in Alaska. The other one was born in Hawaii. Of mixed race, one parent was Asian, the other parent was white, that kind of thing. So yeah, you
Wow.
can check that out as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You're such a great brother, John. You're like, my sister has
Seriously.
this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
This
shut
is
up now.
awesome.
Thanks, guys.
No, thank you so much.
Soulful Strut. Do you want to say anything? Welcome.
Yes.
This and I totally enjoyed it. And by the way, I have a Substack, Mixed Auntie Confidential, and I would like to feature you as well. So I'll be reaching out.
Oh, thank
Okay,
you so much,
just so you
Teresa.
know. Just so you
Thank
know.
you. Thanks for
Absolutely.
joining.
Oh, every time I've seen it, I'm like, oh, I want to talk to her. What? And I loved not just hearing you read it, which was adorable, but I just really love you bringing such a fresh concept. So I'm like an OG. I've been in these mixed streets for a long time. I'm a boomer, okay? And a long, long time, for a long time by myself, basically.
Mm.
But this is such a delightful, delicious, fresh, really, I love how you described it and your wisdom in how you created this approach, which I think is really, I think you're really going to move the needle, especially starting not with just with young people, but with the parents who might be reading the books to them, teachers, etc., librarians. So I just want to really give you your flowers. What seems like a simple concept is seriously powerful and very, very brilliant.
Thank you so much for that, Teresa. Like, I
You're welcome.
really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Well,
Hey,
my dreams have
Lee. Always
come
good to see
true.
you.
Yes, thank you for being here, Teresa. You're our April book club feature, so I'm so excited that one book club feature gets to
Thank
meet the
you.
next. This is the kind of
Yes.
connection and cyclical energy that I'm trying to create here, and so my dreams have come true. I mean, not two people being like, "I'm going to reach out to interview you." I'm like, "Yes, this is what I want. This is so perfect." And just to
Exactly.
close out, exactly. I've created a new event that we do every month. It's on the third Tuesday of every month. It's called Drinks on Discord. I like alliterations. And it's really just a networking event. It's an opportunity for folks who have platforms, who have podcasts or wanting to start podcasts, who have an Instagram account, who are kind of finding their message, putting out their message. Some people even are leaders in this space as well. They run nonprofits or run their own companies, for us to get to know each other more and for us to really know what the other person is working on, the kind of resources that they might need. There's a lot of people who have podcasts in this space, and I would really love for our Drinks on Discord meetings to be places where we can not make other people's mistakes and like find out how to do what we want to do cheaper, faster, more effectively, more efficiently. So my approach is always coming from a business perspective, but a lot of times it's really just like, oh my God, I've been following you on Instagram for years and have never met you in person or like even seen your face live and like let's just talk. And so that's called Drinks on Discord. And the next one is happening on April 21st. That's always at 12 p.m. Eastern. And so I'm just going to put that in this chat again as well. And we will post about it. So just keep an eye out. But my last thing for Discord is that on our Discord, there is a little calendar emoji, and it will say when the next events are and what time those events are. So if you're ever wondering what's happening on Discord, you can just find our emoji, our calendar emoji on Discord, and that's when you'll see all the dates of all the next events, and that's how you can keep up to date. But yeah, I'm going to close. We are at time. This has been a lovely discussion, as always. Thank you so much, Mikki, again, and for both you, Teresa, and for you, John, for coming up and participating and sharing. And yeah, I mean, this Discord is live all the time. So if anybody ever has any more questions for Mikki, Mikki's on Discord now, and we will just continue the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lily. Thank you, John and Teresa, for speaking and sharing your stories. And just, I'm so excited to know more people, just like have new friends. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I'll see you all soon on various other platforms, and we'll talk soon. Mwah, mwah. Bye, y'all. Bye, everyone else
Great
out
job.
there.
Take care.